Ja'Marr Chase has been one of the best players in the NFL from the second he stepped onto an NFL field. Teaming up with his all-world college quarterback Joe Burrow has certainly helped, with the pair seamlessly translating their LSU magic to the pro level. Yards, touchdowns, and broken records have been the name of the game for Chase, and there are no signs of him slowing down anytime soon, especially as he has his sights set on the Triple Crown in 2024. This is the remarkable story of one of the NFL's brightest superstars. Ja'Marr Chase's journey to the top of the NFL started back in 2000 when he was born in Harvey, Louisiana. And now you see, it wasn't always the easiest of starts for Ja'Marr growing up. He grew up with 5 other siblings in a population where 1/5 of the population where he was from was below the poverty line. His mother worked as a hospital cleaner and his father Jimmy worked as a social worker. It was a busy household and tensions were often high during Ja'Marr's teenage years, as his mischief was sometimes too much to handle. So what was their solution? Well, they turned all of that misbehaving to the gridiron and football. Jimmy introduced his son to football and hoped that it would give him an avenue to use up his endless energy, and I mean, boy, it did that. As a high schooler, Chase reeled in 115 receptions for 2,152 yards and 30 touchdowns. I mean, could you imagine sitting in algebra class that day knowing you had to guard Ja'Marr Chase the following evening in your varsity football game? It was good enough to make him a 4-star recruit and the 15th best receiver prospect in the nation. Not only that, but Chase had also made a name for himself in track and field events, earning an invite to the Louisiana State track meet despite only being in his first year of officially competing. His dad fondly remembers 2 older boys clearly being the crowd favorites, lapping up all of the attention and winding their opponent, the younger Chase. Jimmy Chase told Sports Illustrated that he has an old saying where it was, "You make Ja'Marr mad and he's going to do something." So much to the surprise of his older competitors, when it was his turn to jump, Chase broke a 35-year-old school record to win the state title. That record still hasn't been beaten, which tells you all you need to know about how naturally gifted of an athlete Ja'Marr Chase was. Honestly, just with the incredible athleticism that Ja'Marr Chase did possess in high school, he pretty much could pick from any college that he wanted to attend, but he made sure to test out pretty much every possible option. First up, he did commit to Ole Miss, but eventually backed out there because they broke NCAA recruiter rules. The next lucky college to earn his commitment was Florida. However, they swiftly lost it when they fired their head coach, and after that, there was even a brief stint where Ja'Marr Chase was heading to TCU of all colleges, only for him to change his mind again and commit to LSU. Thankfully for the Tigers, it was 4th-time lucky, and Chase joined the team in 2018 alongside 5-star recruit Terrence Marshall.
In the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be taking my talents to Louisiana State University.
And now, yes, obviously Ja'Marr Chase was still a couple of years removed from doing anything special at LSU, but surprisingly enough, and what most people don't know, is that he almost never even had that chance at LSU to do anything special. In fact, after one visit to LSU during the recruiting process, young Ja'Marr even told his dad, "I'm not going back to LSU no more." And as it turns out, the head coach at the time, Les Miles, had wanted to move Chase into the secondary. At first, Chase did play along, but when they got outside to doing a drill and it was Ja'Marr's turn, he simply turned around and walked away. He just couldn't do it. Deep down, he knew he was a wide receiver, and if Les Miles didn't want him to play that position, then there was no chance he was going to LSU. Thankfully for the Tigers, Les Miles was sent packing soon after, opening the door to Chase changing his mind and committing for that 2018 season. He entered with high expectations, hoping to follow in the footsteps of Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, who both had gone on to have spectacular NFL careers after playing in Death Valley. Year 1 for Ja'Marr Chase at LSU was just about finding his feet in a loaded offense that featured Justin Jefferson, Foster Moreau, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and was piloted by quarterback Joe Burrow in his first season as a Tiger. Chase had no more than 3 catches in any of his regular season appearances, producing over just 200 yards. However, a 6-reception, 93-yard, and 1 touchdown outing in the Fiesta Bowl against UCF showed glimpses of a potentially higher ceiling to come.
Here's Burrow to throw, loads up and fires, got a wide open man, caught for a touchdown!
And now with Joe Burrow having spent a year at LSU and inside of that offense, Justin Jefferson having almost hit 1,000 yards, and Jamar Chase ready for a bigger role, Tiger fans were feeling optimistic heading into the 2019 season. An easy win over Georgia Southern to get the next year started was a good way to knock off the rust, but a fixture against Texas in week 2 of the college football season would prove to be their first major test of the year. And this was a test that LSU passed with flying colors, with a fully unleashed Joe Burrow throwing for 471 yards and 4 touchdowns in a tense 45-38 victory. And really, for that game, it was the first time that everybody in the nation would see this historic offense on the national stage and what was to come that season. With Justin Jefferson leading the way with 9 receptions for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns, closely followed by Jamar Chase with 147 yards, and hell, even Terrence Marshall getting in the mix with 123 yards and 1 score, they looked like one of the best offenses in college football ever. 1 week later, it was Jamar Chase's turn to steal all of the headlines, bringing in 10 receptions for 229 yards and a whopping 4 touchdowns against Vandy.
Pocket holds, another end zone shot, beautiful pitch and catch, it's Jamar Chase again.
I mean, really by now, at this point in the season, it was clear that this LSU offense was something special this year. Chase and Jefferson continue to put up remarkable numbers all year long, leading the team to a perfect 13-0 regular season record. Jamar Chase even passed the 200-yard mark again against Ole Miss in a game where he brought in 8 receptions for 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, I mean, him, Jefferson, and Joe Burrow were simply unstoppable, and their good form continued into the playoffs where Oklahoma was felled by 63 points to 28. Chase only had 2 receptions in the college football playoff semifinal, but he made up for that by going absolutely ballistic in the national championship game, very much saving his best for last. Against Trevor Lawrence and his reigning champion Clemson Tigers, Chase set a new college football playoff championship game record with 221 yards and 2 touchdowns on 9 receptions. Burrow helped himself to 463 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions on the day, with Justin Jefferson also surpassing the 100-yard mark. Like, it was a perfect end to the perfect season for LSU. They were national champions, Joe Burrow was the Heisman Trophy winner, and Jamar Chase was awarded the Fred Biletnikoff Award, making him just the second receiver from LSU to achieve that feat. He did all of this thanks to a stunning 1,780-yard, 20-touchdown performance that still stands as an all-time single-season record as an LSU Tiger. Like, the quality of play and eye-watering production from Jamar Chase in that 2019 season had already guaranteed he was going to be very near the top of the NFL draft when it was his turn to go. And I mean, really, with all of that in mind, and also with just all the complications of COVID in that 2020 season, Chase opted just to completely forego that COVID season pretty much and just focus on what was going to come next for his pro career. After watching his teammates Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson go in the first round of the 2020 NFL draft, it was his turn 1 year later, and it just so happened to be on the same team who had selected his college quarterback, who was now in need of a wide receiver.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Jamar Chase, wide receiver, LSU.
And really, when this draft decision was made, many people were kind of questioning as why the Bengals didn't take an offensive lineman to protect Joe Burrow, but it only took 1 week for the decision to be justified. The former Tigers picked up right where they left off, combining for 101 yards and 1 touchdown on 5 receptions in week 1 of that 2021 season. In his first game at the pro level, after spending the last year on the sidelines during COVID, Chase proved he belonged instantly. His first official touchdown came on the easiest of 50-yard completions, with Chase simply breezing past the Vikings corner and bringing in the perfectly placed pass from Burrow.
Going deep, Jamar Chase, he's got it! Chase to the end zone!
This play was the perfect example of Jamar Chase's natural athleticism, gliding past his opponent with ease and looking like a veteran on day 1 of his pro career. Chase followed this up with 3 touchdowns over his next 2 games before confirming his elevation to the superstar club as a rookie with a standout performance against the division rival Baltimore Ravens. Burrow and Chase went into the Ravens' nest and showed them who was boss, linking up for 8 receptions for a whopping 201 yards and 1 touchdown and an absolute 41 31-17 ass kicking. And I think it was safe to say that by that game, Bengal fans had kind of realized that they had hit the jackpot. Like, the 5th overall pick was as good as anyone could have hoped, and his pre-existing chemistry with the previous year's #1 overall pick had instantly produced one of the most lethal partnerships in the entire NFL. It was a rookie season for the ages, capped off in the most perfect way possible with a stunning 11 reception performance against Kansas City, which yielded 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Chiefs were the reigning AFC champions, but they could do nothing to slow down Chase, who was showing off his remarkably game-breaking ability. He was the difference in that 34-31 victory, already solidifying his status as one of the most dangerous weapons in the entire NFL as a rookie. In total, Chase collected 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns, which made him an easy choice for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, but his work was not done yet. Thanks to Burrow and Chase's dominance, the Bengals have produced a 10-7 record, which was the first record in division title in 6 seasons, and it was now time to see if Chase could live up to the hype on the playoff stage. And, well, spoiler alert, he did. 12 targets in the wildcard round against Las Vegas turned into 9 receptions for 116 yards before another 100-yard performance saw off the Tennessee Titans in the AFC divisional round. A daunting trip to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Kansas City Chiefs was up next, but Chase did not shy away, collecting 6 Joe Burrow passes for 54 yards and a touchdown in a game that would see Cincinnati win in overtime by 27 points to 24. For just the 3rd time in their franchise history, the Cincinnati Bengals were going to the Super Bowl where the Rams were waiting for them. Unfortunately though, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Donald proved to be too much for the Bengals, bringing a heartbreaking end to what would be a spectacular rookie season for Jamar Chase. Nevertheless though, his partnership with his former college quarterback had been better than even the most optimistic fan could have hoped for, and the pair appeared destined to torment the AFC for many years to come. The dangerous duo started off the 2022 season as hot as they finished the 2021 season, combining for a 10 reception performance against the rival Pittsburgh Steelers and produced 129 yards and a touchdown.
4 seconds left. Burrow dials it up. Touchdown!
Unfortunately though, that performance would come at a loss and would honestly start kind of a sad trend for the Bengals, where almost at the beginning of every season since Jamar Chase has been drafted, they've had kind of slow starts to every single season and haven't looked that great. The season was hanging in the balance thanks to a 2-3 record, but 2 consecutive 130-yard and 2 touchdown performances against the New Orleans Saints and Atlanta Falcons got things back onto track. What makes those performances even more impressive though is that Chase suffered a hairline fracture in his hip against New Orleans, but still managed to play and dominate against Atlanta the week after. However, he did re-aggravate the injury in that game against the Falcons, leading to a 5-week stint on the sidelines. Despite only playing 12 games on the season, Chase still managed to pass the 1,000-yard mark, and he popped up again in the playoffs with a touchdown in each of the first 2 rounds. However, this time, it was the Kansas City Chiefs who had the last laugh in the AFC Championship game, defeating the Bengals by a margin of just 3 points. I mean, after making the Super Bowl and AFC Championship game in consecutive years, expectations were sky high again entering the 2023 season, and Chase was dominating the only way he knew how. He brought in 15 receptions for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Cardinals, en route to his 3rd consecutive season with over 1,000 yards, logging 1,216 of them to go along with 7 touchdowns. Unfortunately, a mid-season wrist injury for Joe Burrow doomed the Bengals and deprived them of any postseason action for the first time in 3 years. With Joe Burrow now having ended 2 of his 4 seasons early due to injury, the Bengals were eager to capitalize in 2024, particularly considering this was likely going to be T. Higgins' last season in a Bengals uniform. And don't get me wrong, because Higgins is a great receiver in his own right and creates matchup nightmares for opposing defenses who are already struggling to keep the lid on Chase. Unfortunately though, the season got off to a rough start, not helped out by the fact that both T. Higgins and defensive end star Trey Hendrickson handed in trade requests during the offseason. Add in the fact too that Jamar Chase held out during the preseason because of contract negotiations, and it was a messy start to this season. I mean, the Bengals are already renowned for not wanting to spend up whenever possible, but the unrest in the locker room caused by these contract disputes led to a sluggish first few games, with Cincinnati dropping to a 1-4 record. And honestly, I mean, while losing 4 of your first 5 games is not what you want to have to start any season, we really couldn't blame the offense for why they started that way. Chase crossed the 100-yard mark twice during that 5-game stretch, including a 193-yard, 2-touchdown effort against Baltimore, which resulted in an overtime loss. He, Burrow, and the offense were leaving it all out on the field, which was a trend that continued all throughout this season. The most frustrating of losses was the second of the season to Baltimore, in which Chase went absolutely nuts, collecting 11 receptions for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, due to their dismal defense, this only resulted in an all too familiar feeling of the team coming up short, despite the offense truly playing at an elite level. And now, after 15 weeks of the NFL season, Ja'Marr Chase is on track for career highs across the board with 1,413 yards and 15 touchdowns. In doing so, he has a great shot at achieving the Triple Crown awarded to the receiver who leads the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And obviously for Chase, the main price he is interested in is playoff glory, and while they face an uphill battle, they aren't completely out of the mix this season. Who knows? With Chase and Burrow playing at a Hall of Fame level right now, perhaps they can make up for the defensive woes and drag this team into the playoffs this year.